Hello again, and welcome back to the British Gaming Podcast, this time for the 27th of June 2015. We're actually doing really well at that regular update thing. As always, we've got Richie with us.
Hello.
And Terry.
Yo.
And we have a very special guest who went to uni with me some years ago and actually got into the games industry. Say hello to Vinny Hill.
Hey guys.
Hey, Red.
So, Vinny, you want to tell people as much as you can about what you do, because I appreciate there are NDAs and stuff.
Yeah, well, at the minute I work in Osaka in Japan. So I work at Ubisoft, and we're currently, well, our studio is alongside the San Francisco studio, and we work on South Park at the minute.
And so the sequel to Stick of Truth.
Yes, that's the one.
Amazing. And you said to me before that, naturally pre-recording, that a lot of the people there don't know what South Park is.
Yeah, it's an interesting like series of events. Like, a lot of people don't know what South Park is in Japan. There's a lot of offensive material, and Japanese people are quite reserved. So, yeah, it's quite funny, especially when you've got poor shy Japanese people working on dildo swords. It's quite funny.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's just trying to explain. Especially, like, because we have to watch all the shows as well. So, for, like, 2 weeks, everyone has to watch all the shows, like, on their computers, and they get paid for this, whatever.
You get paid to watch South Park episodes.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
How do you explain it, then? How do you actually explain? Because obviously there must be a big cultural difference between the two. How do you kind of explain that crude humour is such a natural thing in the Western world?
You don't. You just explain the joke and then hope that they forget about it as soon as possible.
Is it
Yeah,
sort
it's
of like
difficult.
explaining? Is it like explaining a South Park joke to your nan?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's actually a really good analogy of it. It's kind of like, yeah, it's, if you've ever, like, had someone try and tell you a joke that was originally in a different language, and then they try to tell you in in English, like, the humor just doesn't come across, so you're just looking at them kind of like, you're weird.
So does it translate at all? Does the humour translate, or is it lost in translation?
Some of it translates through, but it's just the really awkward moments, especially when people are getting drilled in the asshole and like in the episodes and stuff, and the Japanese person turns around, looks at your monitor like, why do I work on this? What am I doing with my life?
So you've got all of these people in the UK and the US that would give their left nut to work on something South Park related, and then you've got, say, 30 or 40 Japanese people like, I don't know what this is, it's very offensive to me, and I don't like working on it.
Pretty much. That's the irony. Like, we're just about to finish up on another project, which is an American-based IP, which I can't talk about, but it's the same thing with that. It's because it's a Western IP, all the Japanese people have no clue what it is, and they had to watch all the TV shows to this other IP, and they were just like, we don't get this sort of thing. So it's a similar thing. But,
where are you working with all these Western...
Where
you working with all like these Western IPs? Like, you know, going back like 5-6 years to our uni days, you were studying Japanese. You have been for quite a long time. Have any of these guys had to... I know they do English to a degree in school, but do they need to know English so that they can watch these Western IPs and get the general idea, or...?
No, not especially. It depends, because most of the development for South Park is actually done through the San Francisco studio, which is obviously an American studio. So most of the stuff gets done through there. But I think a lot of the art and the programming that's getting outsourced from our studio is done by pretty much mostly the foreign employees that work at our studio. So it all kind of works out. There isn't that many Japanese people working on the show, but most of the people in our studio are actually a lot of them are bilingual, so it's okay.
Right, so a lot of them can, speak more than one language, and has that made it easier? Because obviously moving to Japan, that's quite a cultural difference. Obviously there's a language barrier. Has that made it easier to settle in?
It has, but it's sort of a hindrance as well, because when I first moved to Japan, I was an English teacher for a while, and while I was doing that, I was working in public sort of middle schools and high schools and stuff like that, and I wasn't actually allowed to speak Japanese, like, ever. It was
so
actually
they do, like,
in my
this
contract.
Immersive, if you're going to learn the language, then that language will be the only thing in that room.
That's their thought behind it, but when you're trying to explain certain complex sentences and they're just like, what? We don't get it. Like, if you can explain that in Japanese and you're not allowed to, it's kind of ridiculous. There's a lot of that in Japan, but yeah, it's similar sort of thing.
Point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't allowed to speak Japanese for the first 2 years I was here. now I'm in a studio. I'm like, finally, I can speak Japanese every day, and everyone's speaking English. Fuck's sake.
Everyone turns around and like, one sentence structure.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it comes with the territory, though. You get used to it.
Yeah. So
when you were watching the South Park episodes, how did they react to Good Times with Weapons?
Well, very differently to how we reacted. It's funny, it's like a lot of the Westerners are rewatching the episodes. But all the Japanese people will sort of watch it very quickly and move on if they can. But,
yeah, I mean...
this is contractual, so I'm just going to watch the bare minimum and then move on with my life.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been kind of awkward, like, when that episode came up.
So, yeah, well, I wasn't there for that one, but yeah, everyone's watching it because everyone has all the episodes on their computers. So we're not watching it all together. It's just everyone's watching it separately, so no one knows. But every now and then, a Japanese person will call over a Westerner and say, "I don't understand this. Like, why are they killing the boy in the orange hood and stuff?" It's just like, how do you? Okay,
he died in the previous episode, yet here he is again.
Yeah.
I do not understand.
I have case evidence. There are 7 cases where he's died 7 times in a row now. He shouldn't be coming back.
Is he some kind of unholy spirit?
Oh god, there's another episode as well. Fuck you, Wales.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. But,
imagine that's a touchy subject for them.
Yeah, they're easily offended, you could say. But we've got people from all over the world though that could get offended by the material of South Park, but you've got to take it lightheartedly. So.
Oh yeah, they rip on everyone. So.
Yeah, exactly. Even themselves.
There's a humour difference naturally there, and what people do and don't get offended by. Is there anything from like? I know they've got British pubs over there, but is there anything from here that you particularly miss, or that they just don't seem to have for some reason?
For English culture, what I miss, a full English breakfast. That's what I would like.
Oh yeah, good shout, good shout.
Man, I would like a bacon sandwich with baked beans on the side, please. Like they don't have that.
Vinny, I'll send you one if you want. I don't mind.
But if you could, I would love you.
I'll pop one in the post today.
You can get bread, you can get bacon, you can get beans. What's the problem?
This is the thing. Like when I left England, I said goodbye to certain things. I said goodbye to good bread because everywhere else that I've been in the world ever has had terrible bread compared to England. Don't know why. It's just the way it was.
It's just not quite Kingsmill.
Right, exactly. Like Kingsmill is the king of bread.
Right.
No pun intended.
Yeah, hence the name.
or a good Warburton. Yeah. You can.
Yeah. So I had a good sandwich. I sat down. I was like, right, goodbye bread, and a good British pint. And I said, okay, goodbye Carlsberg or whatever, And off I went to the land of the rising sun. Little did I know that their bread is also awesome, and they have even better beer than we do. But they don't have baked beans, and they don't have bacon.
How can you not have baked beans or bacon?
That's what I keep asking them, and they still won't give me an answer.
That's insane. That's just crazy to even imagine, isn't it? You don't think about this sort of stuff.
Well,
yeah, exactly. It's weird things like that.
Yeah, I've heard cheese is scarce there as well.
Cheese is very scarce. That is another one. But apparently it's way worse for being an American because everyone that I know over here is an American. Like all my friends are American. My girlfriend is American. And they have much harder time with their cultural differences. At least we get a couple of British pubs now and then, at least.
They just don't get anything.
They just don't get anything.
So, if I go into town, there's, the Asian markets, and there's always the places selling, Japanese sweets. You might get some Asahi beer or something. Do they not have the reverse? Is there not, an English market in Japan?
There is sometimes. It depends where you go. I mean, you can find some really niche places in central Tokyo, or you can look on the internet and find baked beans to deliver to your door, which is really sad. But
we can pay £5 for a box of Lucky Charms if we want them.
Right,
badly.
exactly. Yeah, honestly, I went over to America to visit my girlfriend's parents at the start of the year. So, sorry, last Christmas I went, and the whole time I was there, it was just food, and it was amazing. I didn't care about any of the sightseeing stuff. I just wanted to eat and eat and eat, and then came back to eating fish and rice. It's just how it is.
Yeah, when I went to Phoenix and I found out they had maple-flavoured bacon.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Stop teasing me. Stop it. Bacon. They've got American bacon over here, but it's very different.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? That is.
So
it's like 95% fat, but
yeah.
Would you stay in Japan or not? Because I saw a Facebook post from you, and it was a while ago, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning it here.
No.
It was something along the lines of feeling like a visitor, as opposed to feeling like you're living there long term.
Yeah, that is very true of every foreigner that comes here. Even if you get fluent in Japanese, you got to remember that Japan is 99.5% Japanese people that live here. It's not like the UK, where we see foreigners every day and people of different races and cultures that were born in England and stuff like that.
I believe the PC term is multicultural society.
Yeah, something along that lines. Yeah. I don't know what it is anymore. It's a mixed bag of fruit. But anyway, in Japan they don't
pick a mix, great.
Yeah, exactly. But in Japan they don't have that at all. Like everyone is Japanese. Like people stare at you on the train and stuff like, oh my god, it's a white person. It's that sort of like crazy. If you go into the countryside, there's some people that have never seen a white person before. I've had people fall off their bikes because they were staring at me so hard. Like, it's wild. Like literally a girl pedaling down the streets, like clocked me in the corner of her eye, just locked onto me, and then just hit a lamppost.
It's like something out of a cartoon, isn't it?
It really is. Honestly, you feel like it. Like at first when you get here, you kind of feel like a rock star or something. Not in like an egotistical sort of way, just the way people look at you. But after a while, it starts to actually get under your skin, and you never feel like you're actually accepted in Japan. You always feel like you're a visitor. And people will ask you weird questions like, oh, when are you going home? And stuff like this.
Does it cause you any problems then?
It does. It causes a lot of problems for a lot of people. It helps if you learn more Japanese, but at the same time, like it ultimately doesn't really matter. It's down to how people observe different situations culturally. So what Japanese people seem as okay will not be okay in the UK and vice versa. So it's weird things like that.
So, is it a bit of a kind of xenophobic sort of culture over there? Like...
I don't know if it's xenophobia. Like it's a strong word to use, but
yeah.
I think it's
definitely
a lack of exposure.
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah.
It's more of they don't understand it, so they don't want to try and accept it. The younger people are a lot more accepting of it because would you believe Disney is huge over here? It's absolutely massive.
I'm guessing Kingdom Hearts had a hand in that.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
No, it was Disney was way big before Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts came around because of it, sort of thing.
Isn't there a Disney World in Japan?
There is.
Yeah,
one.
I thought there was.
Tokyo.
Well, his sort of a tale I got from a friend of mine. He's one of those friends I only ever see at conventions, but he went over to Japan, just went around Tokyo, Akihabara, etc. for like a week or two and came back. And he got lost at one point. He was trying to ask this guy for directions, and he was just flat out getting ignored. And then he was just like, people aren't like this in the UK. And apparently the Japanese guy snapped around on the spot and went, oh, you're British? I was ignoring you because I thought you were American. If you're British, it's cool. I'll give you directions.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it's weird. Like sometimes because the life expectancy of Japanese people is a lot higher than it is in the West. There are still a lot of old men that walk around that did fight in World War II, and they do give you them looks like a young white person. Like it's probably bringing back some horrible memories.
Like it's your fault.
Yeah, right. So it's sort of like, you sometimes get a look, but you understand. Like I get it. So it's all right. But yeah, there's a bit of racism here, but it's nothing that you get under your skin too much.
Yeah.
It's a very pleasant country.
Really.
We have plenty of that here as well.
Yeah.
Although oddly enough, I sometimes get the reverse here, but I'm not going to go into that. We naturally on the podcast, I've always restricted talking about what I do for a living because of various NDAs and not wanting to lose the job. It is something that I've wanted to explain, which I've not been able to explain, but you seem to have a little more freedom to explain, is what it's like to get paid to do art stuff all day.
It's weird. It's very weird. I remember for the first couple of months, seriously, I was waiting to get that, getting pulled into the office to say, oh, you're wasting time or something. Because I worked in schools for 2 years before I started working in a studio here.
Yeah.
And if you were doing anything that wasn't something to do with teaching, then people will give you that funny look, like, why are you wasting time?
Yeah.
And then I started a Japanese game studio, and it's the complete opposite. And you've got all the freedom in the world. You can sit there and you can watch YouTube while you're painting, and you get paid for it. And you wonder who's putting this money in your bank account every month, because like you're going to work and you're actually enjoying it. It's really weird.
So does it feel very much like hanging out at home?
Yes, that is a very good way of putting it, actually. It gets to the point, actually, where weekends are intensely boring. Like, it's weird. Like, it's completely flipped. Like, I don't look forward to the weekend at all anymore, because at the minute, my girlfriend lives over in Tokyo, because we're still in that transition of moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I've literally got nothing to do on the weekends. Nothing. Like, I end up coding in C++ just to have something to do.
Just as a note on that, by the way, it is currently around about 10 on a Saturday morning here. Usually we record these in the evenings, like during weekdays. However, we sort of moved it so that Vinny could join us due to the time zone difference.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem. Terry made the decision of going out drinking last night, according to his Facebook post at 3 a.m.
Hey, it's fine. I'm still with it. It's all good.
That's why he's not saying very much.
No, I just didn't want to interrupt or anything. I mean, I've got a question that I've been burning to ask. I just didn't want to interrupt anyone, which is...
Can I get one in just before you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Just because it was on the trail we were on.
Get out of here, Terry.
Yeah, shut up, Terry.
I'm going to let you finish, but...
on the note of, it feels weird, like you're hanging out at home, you're not sure why this money's going into your bank account or who from. I have had a similar incident recently at work, which I think I can talk about, where basically I was ill. There's no two ways about it. And my manager sort of clocked it and was like, you really shouldn't be here, I want you to go home. And I made the argument to her because the lines between work and play get very blurred for me. I made the argument to her of, if I go home right now, what would I be doing at home that would be any different to what I'm doing here? And on that basis, I stayed at work for the rest of the day. But is that more or less the general feeling, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there isn't any point in time where I don't want to be in the studio. It's very strange to have the difference between having a job and having a career. Like they're two very black and white different things. And I don't like to like speak about it too much because I'm very conscious of the fact that many people still have jobs. And
well, a job is something you do for the paycheck. A career is something you can actually get your teeth into and enjoy. Yeah.
I was watching a very good stand-up show of Chris Rock quite a while ago, and he was talking about it, and he said, when you've got a job, when you've got a career, like there isn't enough time in the day. Like you look at your clock at 5 o'clock and like, damn, I've got to come in early tomorrow so I can get like some headway on my project and stuff. God, like where's the time go? It's flying by.
Like your boss is telling you, go home.
Got a job, if you've got a job, there's too much time. Like, you're looking at your clock, and it's like, man, it's like 9:08. Like, man, I've still got 9 hours before I can go home. It's that weird sort of transition. So, yeah, the time just flies by. It's crazy.
There was a concern I had when I moved into, like you said, a career, and I don't know if it's a concern that you've had and what your findings have been, so this will be interesting. I was very worried because, like, I make indie games in my spare time. I self-publish comic books in my spare time. When my partner has ponies, and she used to work full-time for other people's ponies, including some celebrities' ponies and horses. And she found that when she finished the day, she'd get back to the field to her own ponies, and she'd be like, I really don't want to do these. I've been mucking things out all day. I can't be arsed. And I was very worried that entering into the career I have, I would get home and I'd be like, I can't be bothered to draw a comic page, I really don't want to code right now, so on and so forth. But that's not been the case. If anything, I've had more enthusiasm when I've gotten home to work on my own stuff. How's that been for you?
It really depends, because if I go to work and I'm working on sort of painterly concept art, which is sort of my bread and butter, like if I'm working on environments at work or something, like it's very seldom would I come home and continue that sort of work on.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't come home and start a new landscape or something because I'm like, man, I've been doing this for 10 hours today, because the Japanese work day is a bit longer as well.
Yeah.
So, including the commutes, I'm out of the house for 12 hours a day. So, like, if I come in and just carry on doing the same thing, I don't want to burn myself out too much. But I'm lucky in that respect. Like, pretty much every day I'm doing something different. So,
yeah.
One day I'll be working on concept, one day I'll be working on UI. It could be anything. So, it's nice. So, I get a good mix, so it never actually affects me in that respect.
Your style is very, as you said, painterly, very environment artist, concept artist kind of thing, like a lot of, locations and that kind of thing. When we were in uni, I mean, your stuff always made my jaw hit the floor anyway. I'd like finish a project, see what you'd done for the same project, and been like, oh man, which is why you ended up in Osaka and I didn't. But wow, that sounded slightly bitter, and it wasn't meant to be.
It's cool. You got two lovely kids and a wife. You're happy. Wife? You married?
No, I've been engaged for like 4 years, and we never seem to have the money for the wedding. As soon as we save up for it, something comes along.
I'll be there.
At any rate, so
Sorry, digress.
When we were in uni, your style was very manga-inspired, very pencil-y. It reminded me a hell of a lot of... what's the name of the comic? I've actually got the graphic novel sitting on my shelf right here. Mega Tokyo. Like, really heavily, like, Mega Tokyo kind of feel. And then it went into this more, like, the kind of concept art, environment art that you see from most game studios. Was that a conscious choice that you made because that's what you were seeing from other games artists, or was it a natural progression, or how did that come about?
It was a very conscious thing. I hit a point where I moved to Japan. Well, it might have been before Japan, but I was working on that sort of, pencil-drawn sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I realized there was pretty much no work for it, like anywhere. It's really difficult to get a job as a traditional concept artist working with pencils or anything like that.
Mm.
And then you sort of look at the Japanese market, which is very different to the Western market. And a lot of Japanese stuff is mainly character work. And a lot of Western stuff is they have a lot more emphasis on environments and a lot more painterly, like my work is now.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to work in a game studio, and the only way I could do that is to adapt myself. So I had to change, basically. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ever gotten to the point where I did. It's like the whole reason why I broke in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've got it. Like, it's a dog-eat-dog world. The whole reason why I broke in is because I did a load of Assassin's Creed fan art, and yeah, it's more about the idea that sells things rather than the actual doing of it. So it doesn't really matter what art style you do.
If anyone's seen, like, the Japanese-y sort of Edo period Assassin's Creed concept art that floated around, like Kotaku and several other websites, that was Vinny. And I remember very distinctly when you got the job, you had to be very clear to your friends and family that I've got the job, but I am not working on those Assassin's Creed concepts.
I had to. One of the first things I did as soon as I got offered the job, I went straight away and I went to my email inbox and I emailed all the journalists that had gotten in touch with me about the whole subject, basically. So I emailed one of the editors at Polygon that was talking to me, which I did work for as well. Yeah. I emailed the guys at Kotaku and I was like, look, I've got a job, but if you hear about it, just don't jump to conclusions. I am not working on Assassin's Creed or anything, because that would have been a good scoop, as it were. Like, a guy who did
the guy we reported on as a fan artist 2 months ago is now doing it as a pro. People would automatically make that connection, rightfully so. So yeah, I had to do a lot of damage control for that. It was a crazy time though. Do you mind if I ask about because we always hear in the UK, Japan's very expensive, and then we get all these reports that anime studios, game studios, etc. pay like the bare minimum they can get away with. How much truth is there to that? Like, financially, how difficult is Japan compared to England? Very. It depends and varies, because it's not just
flat out more expensive. It's expensive in different ways and cheaper in other ways. So, for example, the cost of living is very, very high here. Like monthly rent is probably double what it is in the UK. But you get generally paid quite a lot more, like per month, depending on what job you've got. And like food is very cheap, but cost of living is very expensive. So it all sort of evens out in different places.
So
but
is it sort of like, if you wanted to compare it for the UK, is it sort of like the difference between living up in the north in, say, Huddersfield compared to living in London? Yeah, the rents are cheaper, but you're not getting paid as much.
Yeah, it's something along them lines. The only truth in this whole situation, though, is artists in Japan generally get paid much, much less. Okay. It's very, very true. I'm very fortunate because the studio that I work for is a Western studio. Yeah. So we're not like people who are working for literally scraps. Like there's guys that are working on Naruto at the minute that make less than the people that work in McDonald's, put it that way. And that's the truth. There's a big reason why they outsource most of the animation that comes into one of the big studios. Probably get mostly outsourced from China and Korea because it's cheaper to develop stuff over there, and then just get it outsourced from there. It's crazy. The whole industry at the minute is going through a very weird transition for Japan, because Japan isn't doing great when it comes to games. I think it's quite obvious. When it comes to like RPGs and things like this, they are not at the point where they're at. Anime is going down big time. It's going under. Manga is still going strong. Like that's fine. But anime is taking a serious hit. Studio Ghibli are almost closed down. It's crazy. We're going through a weird time. But
do you think it's partially due to like Western sort of things kind of taking on sort of a more Japanese style? Like you got cartoons like Adventure Time that are very anime style, and you get American games that are sort of very similar to Japanese games. Like, do you think it's because of that blurred sort of line there that might be sort of attributed to it?
I think there's a few factors that sort of made it come about. Like them being one part of it, but during the 90s. Japan had a huge. Japan had a huge economic boom in the 90s. Like it was massive. Like we got a good influx of games from it as well, but not just within the games industry, but everything. Japan had a massive boom, but then after that, it crashed, and they had a massive economic crisis. So that's why we had a lot of empty holes during the 2000s, because Japan was struggling, like financially as a country. So because of that, people aren't getting paid as much, so people won't take the job, so they're changing careers, and there isn't as many artists, and the artists out there are scrambling, so they have to pay them less, and it's just all these things have built up.
Yay, recessions.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many factors, but there is a lot of pressure from Western countries, especially because Western countries have taken over the games industry big time. America is smashing it right now. Canada are smashing it. Like they're doing really well with video games. And
Britain's even doing
stuff like this.
Britain's doing okay. We're getting tax breaks and stuff now.
Yeah, well, UK has the healthiest games industry employment rate at the minute. I was reading about on the news yesterday.
Nice. Yeah, well, I remember you did your games design degree the same place I did, Norwich University College of the Arts. You were living in Norwich, and it was the second that you left Norwich that you got a job with a game studio located in Norwich, and you were doing all the work with them through like Skype and email.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember one of my first jobs that I got as freelance. I was working on an iOS game, and it turns out he was living and working in Norwich. That's the irony.
You just left as well.
Yeah. I was on that project for about 6 months as well. That was wild. It's like, why did I leave?
Terry, I've just remembered, and I apologise. You had a burning question. I don't know if you covered it. Please, by all means.
Yeah, and this is also directed at you too, Sam.
Okay.
How much of what you've learned on your degree has actually been beneficial to your careers, and how helpful have the degrees themselves been to getting into the career as a credential?
Do you want to go first, or should I? Or who wants to? Should we flip a coin?
I'll try. I'll go first.
All right.
The degree was very different to what I'm doing now. Our course was very 3D focused, and they didn't really teach any 2D work whatsoever. And me and Sam pretty much, we did 3D work in the day, I'm sure I can speak for him for this. Yeah, we did 3D work in the day, then we went home at night, and then we just carried on drawing. That's literally how it was.
Well, unless it was Friday, in which case you'd have like 16 guys come through the front door because we had the biggest living room on the course with a TV under one arm, Xbox 360 under the other arm, and then we'd get a call on Monday afternoon asking why none of the course had showed up for any of their lectures, and we were still on the same Halo binge from the Friday night.
Very true. Very true. That happened many few times. The good Halo LAN parties were fun times.
Oh yes. Sorry.
But yeah, the course was very different to what I'm doing now. You have to be very careful with the courses that you choose because, the subject matters are very vague. So when they say, "Oh, we teach you games art," like there's so many fields of games art that 9 times out of 10 it's probably going to be 3D because 3D is the most. It's the most popular job that you can get. The hardest job that you can get and the smallest amount of people that work in the industry is actually a concept artist. So I was against the grain instantly already.
Same here. I doubt anyone from our old uni course or anyone in charge of it is listening, but in the nicest way possible, my degree has been almost entirely inconsequential. What it gave me was sort of 3 years of being around like-minded people where we could practice and challenge each other. As I said earlier, Vinny's stuff, as far as I'm concerned, always kicked my ass. You know, it was.
We did very different stuff though.
Yeah, but we still had similar influences. Like what I was going to say earlier about, styles and like manga not manga, but anime taking a hit is that on the Comic-Con circuit, I've noticed that a lot of comic artists now are very much like me. They grew up on British comics, like Richard Elson's work, Sonic the Comic, Judge Dredd, etc. Very British style. Then they sort of, in their teenage years, got into manga, so they saw a lot of, like, Tetsuya Nomura's stuff for Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball stuff, all these things they saw.
I think someone's phone is going off near the speakers.
Okay, is someone getting buzzing on their end, are they?
Oh, it's stopped now.
It's stopped, okay, fine. But everyone could still hear me during that time, right?
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Apologies to listeners. I'll keep it in there because I'm not repeating all that stuff. I can't even remember what I said.
Yeah, I've got another question afterwards, just a heads up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have one as well.
So you get all, like, these manga influences, and then everyone sort of got to about 20 or so, fell out of love with manga and started, like, the DC New 52 had just started, so people started reading a lot more Batman, Superman. So everyone seems to have this weird mix of British comic style, American comic style, and manga comic style, but that seems to be true for artists I know that live in America and artists I know that live in Japan as well. So thanks to the internet, it's not so clear anymore as to what's what. As far as uni, as I say, I think uni taught you to teach yourself, because we had a guy come in who said that obviously he graduated, he was in the industry for maybe 5 years, and everything he'd learned at uni had become irrelevant, had become redundant, it'd been replaced by other techniques. And so you've got to learn where to find that information, how to make sure you understand that information. That's what uni teaches you. It also taught me a lot of life lessons, like, bills and stuff like that, living with other people. Vinny will probably remember me being naive enough to... our kettle broke. He loves this story, I know he does. Our kettle broke, and he said, "Oh, just boil some water on the hob." Yeah?
Oh my
Christ,
God!
yeah, I remember this.
Were you round at the time,
I
Richard?
don't think I was, but I've heard the story.
Oh,
So
I haven't.
I poured some water into a porcelain mug and put the porcelain mug on the hob.
Oh, Christ.
Oh my God, that was...
Don't do that is the kind of thing uni teaches you. The job I've got now...
taught me that.
The job I've got now, it's taken me like 6 years since graduating to get, and I get the feeling I would have got it without the degree, mainly because nobody has ever asked to see the thing. You know, like, I think if the degree was important to their decision to hire me, they'd have at least asked me to back up the claim of having it.
Yeah.
I essentially, there wasn't games design work. Jo needed to move out to Wiltshire to be closer to her family. So to facilitate that, I took a call centre job with Nationwide. Not proud of it, didn't enjoy it. It was 2 straight years of hell, but I held it down because I had to pay the rent and all the rest of it for her. Because love will make you do stupid things. From there, I moved departments and moved job roles a couple of times. And eventually this internal position for doing what I'm doing now came up. And it's probably safe to say it's an art and design position. I can probably say that much without putting my job at risk.
Yeah.
So I applied for it and I got it, but it was only advertised internally. It wasn't advertised externally as far as I know. There have since been like a couple of promotions posted that again are advertised internally. I think a lot of people have found that they can end up in the same place if they like go into a company at 16 straight out of high school, and end up working their way up until they're generally in the department they want to be. Because I'm working with people who are younger than me, and that's exactly the route they took to end up where they are. So, you know, I'm working alongside people who don't have the degree, but still have similar skill sets, so I can't say that I have my job because of my degree, because it simply isn't true.
So
yeah, there's a famous story about Todd Howard. If you don't know who Todd Howard is, he's the creative director at Bethesda Game Studios, and he works on Fallout and Elder Scrolls. He wanted to be a game designer since he was a kid.
Yep.
And one day he woke up and he realized this, and he was like, I want to be a games designer. And he was telling everyone was laughing at him. And then the second night he finished high school, he went and knocked on Bethesda's doors. He's like, I want a job. He didn't have a degree, didn't have anything. And eventually he bugged them enough that they were like, okay, fine, like you can have like the grunt job. And now he's running the studio, so it really is like an internal sort of thing.
Stan Lee was like a paper boy at age 15 for Marvel, you know?
Yeah.
He was just like
Same
running
for
coffees and stuff.
Yusaka Amano for Final Fantasy. Like he started out, he was 14 when he started out in the illustration industry. Same thing.
Not to sound too much like Shia LaBeouf, but I think if you want to do, you know, whether you want to be a comic artist or a games artist or whatever, just do it. Exactly. Like self-publishing comic books, no qualifications needed. You've just got to, you know, have the confidence, the effort, and essentially you got to put down some money to print it. Games design, you know, Kickstarter is there now. Shenmue 3 is existing because of Kickstarter, and that's a weird thought, but you know, Phil Fish. Anyone ever asked him if he's got a degree? I mean, the guy's an asshole, but has anyone ever asked him
I was
if he's
about
got
to say that. Like, I don't think anyone cares about Phil Fish.
Yeah, no.
Like, the guy who made Braid, who's really whiny and annoying because apparently people don't understand his art. But, the guy who
people are
made Braid...
complimenting him for the wrong reasons is his issue, apparently.
Yeah. Like, it's a compliment, take it.
Yeah.
But again, you know, he just made a game off his own back and he put it out there. There was no interview. There was no anyone checking his qualifications.
So essentially the best advice you can give is just go for it, basically. Like if you're in a position where you're in a job and not a career and you want to sort of transfer over to that, just just keep pestering with job applications and just do some independent work. I mean, is there anything additional to that you can sort of advise to anyone who's in that sort of position where they're in a job and looking to get in a career?
I would say you should always try and get a degree, no matter what, because as Sam says, you do learn a lot of life lessons, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities for you internationally.
It's a
9 times out of
fantastic
10
experience as well. Some of the most fun I've had in my life was during those 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but if you say for games industry, it's pretty likely that you're going to move overseas at some point because the industry is bigger in certain areas. Like for me, I eventually want to work either in Montreal or I want to work over on the west coast of America. Like, but to do that, I'll need a degree, and not because of qualifications or whatever, but you need a degree for your visa. Like immigration needs one. So that's a very strong reason to go and get a degree. Like I wouldn't be sat in Japan right now if I didn't have a degree. Like I got a degree in games design, but I got my teaching job in Japan because I have a degree. It doesn't matter what I got. It's just I'm here because of my degree, and it's the same for everyone
else. A
else.
lot of things, like what the degree is in, doesn't tend to matter to them. Like,
Doesn't
you can
matter.
have a degree in
Honestly, you could have a degree in
neuroscience.
gardening and get a job in Japan. It doesn't matter.
And I think as well, like, one of the things that put me off going for games is hearing all of the horror stories about people being on fixed-term contracts. So with a game development cycle, if you're a 3D artist, there's only a set period of time that they need 3D work done. Like, before the 3D work's done, the environment and concept artwork is done, which is what Vinny does. But again, once you're actually then into, putting the game together, well, the concept art's already there. They don't need that guy anymore. So you end up bouncing around projects a lot, but there don't seem to be many, at least when I was looking, there didn't seem to be many full-time jobs. There seemed to be a lot of fixed-term contracts. So you're with us for 12 months, after that you're on your own. And I've heard a lot about people moving from the UK to Germany to America to Japan and back to the UK, just bouncing around these different games jobs. And even when I graduated, I'd already been with Joanna a couple of years, and it was very much a case of we knew we were going to start a family in that eventually, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that bouncing around and moving every couple of years, because it wouldn't have been fair on her. It wouldn't have been fair on the kids that at the time were, we will have kids and are now downstairs in the living room causing havoc.
Yeah, it depends though. Like most jobs, if you're very specific about your sort of skill set. So if I was saying I'm only a concept artist and I worked in a studio and I was only working on concept art, yes, as soon as my concept art stuff was done, I would have to move studios because I wouldn't have any work and they would only hire me temporarily. Yeah. This is why it's very important to try and be as multi-skilled as you can.
Jack of all trades.
Exactly. You've got to be. Like, to get your foot in the door, you need to be able to do multiple things. Like, you need to be able to do graphics design, you need to be able to do illustration, you need to do like character designs. It doesn't matter. Like, as an artist, you need to do multiple things, because once you've got one thing out of the way done, then you need to be able to do something else, otherwise you're going to get rid of you. So you just have to try and make yourself as accessible as possible if you want to stay in one place anyway. But if
you need to be able to prove you can do the job as well, because what I've found time and time again is that your portfolio says a hell of a lot more than whether you got a 2-2, a 2-1, or a first on your degree.
Yeah, they don't care about if you've got a degree and they can get you in whatever country that you want to work in. They don't care past that. Yeah, because they instantly look at your portfolio. Your resume is actually the last thing that they look at. Would you believe?
This has never been more true than because in the past I've applied for jobs with DC, Marvel, and 2000 AD. Now, DC Marvel I applied for first like an idiot. But at the time I just sent them like a bunch of single images of their characters, and they're like, this is very nice, but it doesn't prove that you can draw a narrative. Which is why I then started self-publishing, because I was like, well, if I do a narrative, I can then show them that. Actually then having self-published 3 comics so far, plug, I then applied for 2000 AD, because I live in Wiltshire, they're based in Oxford, and they do have openings every now and then, and hey, working on Judge Dredd would be kind of cool. And it was, the fact that I had comics did actually get some interest, and they did actually talk to me beyond, yeah, that's nice. Still not working for 2000 AD, but it got me a hell of a lot further.
Yeah.
Having those self-published comics got me a hell of a lot further than it did when I didn't have those self-published comics.
That is actually exactly what happened to me with Ubisoft, would you believe? Like, I actually applied to, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually applied to Ubisoft before I did any of the Assassin's Creed stuff.
Yeah, because it was your Assassin's Creed fan art that essentially got you the job, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I was applying to them before that, and I applied to the Montreal studio, I applied to the Singapore studio, the Japan studio. No one got in touch with me. And then eventually I got an email from the HR manager at the Montreal studio, and it was like, oh, I'm sorry, your work's not really what we're looking for. And normally I'd say, oh, thanks for your time and stuff. But at that point, I'd applied to maybe 150 studios, and I'd gotten about 6 rejection letters, and everyone else ignored me.
Yeah.
So in my moment of frustration, I just emailed him back and was like, well, what do you look for? Like, what do you look for in potential employees and stuff?
Which is the best question you can ever ask. Asking for feedback is extremely important.
Yeah, and like instantly, he replied to me really quickly. Really cool guy. Like I speak to him a lot now.
Yeah.
But he replied to me and he said, we basically look for people that can fit right in. Like you need to look at our projects and say, okay, can I fit into this slot of this gap which they're missing? You know, that's how you need to look at it. Yeah. And you get all these, and he basically said, like, if you send us fan artwork, like direct fan art of, say, if you drew a picture of like Altair from the first Assassin's Creed, if you sent a picture of Edward Canway from the fourth one, we wouldn't care, because that's just like, oh, you've just redrawn something that we've already seen. Like we want to be able to see if you can fit in. And we want to be able to see if it's something different. Yeah. And instantly from that, I was like, right, I'm going to show you fuckers. So that night, I sat down at my computer, and that's why I started the whole Assassin's Creed Japan thing. 2 weeks later, it went viral, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I can imagine.
Sorry. I was just going to say, sometimes it is. You have to be very stubborn. You have to be very persistent. And you have to see certain things as a challenge, almost.
Yeah.
Always. Like, never keep redoing what you can already do, because it's useless. You'll never learn anything. You won't do anything new. Every day of my job, I'm doing something which I didn't know how to do before. And it's not that I got good at it in the past and I can get good at doing it even better as I go. There's some things which I pick up and it's like, right, I've never done this before. Let's do it. And 2 weeks later, it goes into a game. It's crazy, but it's the best way to go.
I can imagine when you want to present your portfolio to a potential employer, it must be frustrating that, like, if you've done work for a previous company, because of sort of the fact that it's kind of their property, I guess, after you've done the work for them, you probably can't present certain pieces of work. Like, for example, I've done some freelance work for X person, and I can't go then showing that to another company and say, look, this
I
is
think
what I've
it
done.
depends on company to company, because there's basically where I'm working at the moment, I cannot use anything that's remained internal only, which is the majority of the stuff I do. But if we've submitted something for an award, so we put something in for an award show hoping to get something back on that, that's already in the public eye, that's already available to people, so I can use stuff from that in a portfolio.
Oh, cool.
There is some truth to what Terry is saying, though. I mean, like when the biggest problem that you have when you're trying to break into the games industry specifically, like most of the work that you do when you're trying to break in is free work, or you're doing a lot of freelance work or indie work, so you can break through. But a lot of that stuff is also under NDAs, so you can't show it. But the most powerful thing that you've got at that point is your resume. And an awesome portfolio. Like, if you've got a resume that says, I worked at this studio specifically, and even if you put underneath that studio, unannounced game, they know that you've worked with these people, so that's all they care about. They don't really care about...
And they know that you can keep an NDA.
Yeah, there's that as well. But, they don't actually really care about the projects too much. They care about the name behind the projects. So, like, the biggest thing which I had before I started Ubisoft, I worked for a company called The Mill, and we were working on Capital One commercials for America, and it had like Samuel Jackson in and stuff, and I was doing concept work for that. And I couldn't talk about that at the time because it hadn't been released. But now I can. But at the time when I was applying to Ubisoft, I was like, yeah, I worked for The Mill, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we know The Mill. And that was it. That's all they needed. Because if they want to look at good examples of your work, they'll just look at your portfolio.
As well, because they're in that industry, they know very much how it works. They sort of, I don't think they see, I can't share that due to NDA as an excuse. They see it as, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, they get it. Yeah. It's one of them weird things. Like, I'm under NDAs. Like, at the minute our studio is working on 3 games, I can talk about one of them. It's ridiculous.
I'm really hoping the one you can talk about is the South Park one, because otherwise you are in trouble.
That's the only one.
But yeah.
Sorry. I also remembered I interrupted Richie. Sorry about that, dude.
No, it's cool. I was just going to go back, if you don't mind, to a few minutes ago and just say, obviously you mentioned about your artwork going viral and things like that. I mean, what was that like for you? Seeing it all over the internet, basically.
Weird. very, very weird. I remember about a year before, it was actually Georgie, like a friend of ours, and she emailed me like a year before. She's like, hey, like some of your stuff's on Tumblr or something like that, and I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And I went and looked at it, and some random person had just posted up some of my pictures, and it had like 1,000 likes on it, and I was like, oh my god, 1,000 likes, that's the greatest thing in the world. I couldn't believe it.
But did they attribute it to you? Were you credited, or did they just?
Yeah, like he credited me
okay.
and said, "This is by this guy. Here's a link and all this sort of stuff." And it was very nice. And I emailed him and said, "Thank you very much." But then fast forward 12 months, and when the Assassin's Creed thing kicked off, I was looking. I remember just waking up one day and just looking at my website, because I'm on my WordPress website. I've got all my stats and stuff.
Oh, you've got Jetpack on there for that.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at all the bars, and the bars are like flat from the days before, and then as soon as my work went viral, it's just like a vertical block. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I clicked on that, and it said, oh, your website has got 500,000 hits in the past 24 hours. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, you can't really process that. Like, I still don't believe it. It's one of them weird sort of out-of-body experiences. I still can't get my head around it. Like, people email me all the time and say, oh, I really like your work, and it's just weird. It's really weird.
Like, yeah, you know I'm a big fan of your stuff, because I always write on it on Facebook and all stuff like that. And the picture you did, that's cool. The picture you did for the Last of Us picture, that one that got retweeted and everywhere and was all over Twitter and everything, that's still I don't know if you ever saw it, I tweeted you, it was my phone background.
Yeah.
It's still my phone background now. It's been about a month.
Awesome.
It's still my phone background. It's just one of my favourite things you've ever done. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's like one side of the fence, like it's really cool, and I'm really flattered by everyone and stuff. But the other side, like, I understand that a lot of the work that I do that gets popular is more so because of the ideas rather than the actual artwork of it. Which isn't like, I'm not trying to be modest or anything like that. It's just, yeah, like everyone wants an Assassin's Creed set in Japan. That's why it blew up. Everyone would like to see a Last of Us set in Tokyo. That'd be awesome. So that blew up.
Yeah.
It's just like, I understand that. So I do that on purpose. So I play to that ear. Like, you need to get noticed in this industry. So you've got to run at it. And I have a lot of friends that do a lot of sort of like next gen Zelda work. A very good friend of mine, she's visiting here soon actually, and she went viral on Kotaku a few months ago because she just did some Zelda stuff, and she knows very much it's not because of her artwork. And it's the same for me, mine. It's not so much for my skill level; it's just the idea. Because
you say that, but I mean, if you didn't have the skill, it wouldn't have got popular. I don't think you can say that. I think obviously the concept is a big part of it, but I think the fact that your artwork is so good plays a huge factor in it.
It
has to.
Like, I'm not going to lie.
Can I interject 1 second, because this is kind of relevant to when I first started doing artwork. I had a reputation for being the Sonic guy, and I kept getting bloody commissions.
You still do something. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of.
That's never changed.
But like, what was
the convention we went to in January?
Western Supersonic. But like, I kept getting commissions for like people's Sonic OCs and that was fine. It was money. It was and then, like, when I first put out the comic, I had fan art prints. So I had, like, some Iron Man prints, some Final Fantasy prints, yes, some Sonic prints, and Pokemon and stuff like that. And people would come by the table, and they'd go, your comic's really cool. Your original art's really cool. But then they would buy the Sonic or the Pokemon thing because they know Sonic or Pokemon. It's a safe bet. And so just as I've continued to look into, naturally, the stuff I have to report back to HMRC, the legalities of everything, I was already starting to put more original out and less fan art. And then it came to light that MCM Expo, the biggest Comic-Con in the UK, were banning fan art. And this only got announced about 2 weeks before we were due to go down to the show, so thankfully I already had a bulk of original work.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people were pissed.
Yeah, that's one word for it. And everyone saw a dip in sales, pretty much, but nowhere near as much as we were expecting. And on a personal note, it felt so much better to sell an original piece of artwork from my own IP than it did to sell fan art. because I know at that point that they're buying it because they like what I'm putting out, and there's no question of, are they just buying this because it's got Pikachu on it?
It's that weird sort of grey area. I mean, if I just did all my original work, it would get some attention, which is cool, but
I know like
the difference between some attention and a lot of attention is down to the subject matter.
Yeah, and I think because people don't search cool original new IP from this Superfly guy, exactly. People search Last of Us.
Yeah, people find it more naturally that way as well. It's not, like I said, it's nothing to do with. Yeah, it's.
I think it serves as a nice sort of bridge or an entry point.
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, the best advice, the best piece of advice that I can ever give to anyone that's trying to break into like the games industry or comics or anything like that, any sort of creative industry like this, you've got this weird sort of situation where you need to get noticed, so you have to do fan work. But you also need to show that you're an original person, so you have to do original. The best thing that you can do is take a pre-existing IP and change it in a way that it is your original. So like me, I did the Assassin's Creed thing.
And then on the legality side, you then have an argument for a transformative work as well.
Exactly. So it's like if I wasn't working at Ubisoft right now, I would definitely be working on concept art for an Elder Scrolls 6 or concept art for a Pokemon MMO. That's literally what I'd be spending my hours on right now. Because that would get noticed. Yeah, exactly. People want it. People see it. People share it. It's that simple.
I think people share it because it's a way of them going, God damn it, Nintendo, this is what we want. This guy gets it. This is, this guy took my thoughts and put them in a visual format that I can then show to you, so here you go.
Yeah, it's funny, like, if you go and look at the Ubisoft stuff, like, from when I posted up mine, like, so many people were just tagging Ubisoft in my piece and saying, Ubisoft, look at this. Ubisoft, hire this guy. Ubisoft, why aren't you making this game?
Yeah,
it's wild.
He understands. Hire him. It's like when, for me and Terry, Sonic Fan Remix, when that got taken down,
we were like, right out of my mouth. Exactly. I mean, the games companies that get angry about that sort of thing and do a cease and desist for fan work.
I think I'm playing it weird at the moment. I will still do fan art for attention. It's probably the best way I can put it. But I've now made a rule that I will not sell that fan art. And that's where I draw the line. So, fan art can be on my website, it can be on my DeviantArt, whatever. But I will not print it and try to sell it. That's probably the safest way to play it right now. But
I've always set a self-rule to myself, like I never do fan art, ever. Which sounds weird, but it's true. Like, I never do direct fan art. You'll never see me draw a picture of Edward Kenway from Assassin's Creed 4. You'll never see me draw a picture of Ellie from The Last of Us.
I don't think we'd even see you do a steampunk Batman, because there are already official canon steampunk Batmans.
That's the thing. If you go into DeviantArt and search any fan art, like, you'll find 29 million different variations of anything that you want. So it's completely useless to do it anyway. So if you want to get noticed, do something different.
Yeah. On that, I will admit, I mentioned Batman on purpose because I know me and Terry wanted to talk. Exactly, we wanted to talk about the launch of Arkham Knight.
Go for it.
At this point in time, PC sales for Arkham Knight have been suspended on Steam.
Yeah. Well, they can still get it on PC, though, if you buy it on a disc or a CD key website or something.
I think Green Man Gaming are still selling it, but they've taken a couple of quid off the price.
Yeah, cdkeys.com as well.
Yeah. So, even the PlayStation 4 version has had difficulties with launching. So, there was the limited edition Batmobile edition, where you got a Batman statue, a comic, a steelbook case, etc. They cancelled that outright because they got the Batmobile statues in and they weren't happy with the quality of them. And on the one hand, I've got to respect someone saying, I can't sell this. On the other hand, a lot of people were very angry because they were like, okay, fair enough, the Batmobile statue wasn't good. That doesn't mean I don't still want the art book, the steelbook case, the DLC, the comic book, and everything else that came with it. They could have, quite easily just said, right, we'll take, say, 40 quid off to account for the Batmobile statue not being there, but you can still have the rest of the package. I wasn't affected by that because I ordered. It was pretty much the same limited edition. It was exclusive to Amazon, and it had a Batman statue instead of a Batmobile statue. I got
it's just sickening. Like the whole. I'm not a fan of pre-orders whatsoever because of this reason alone. So many problems happen.
Statue.
Yeah, it's the thing. They suck you in. I mean, when I was watching the Fallout 4 announcement, reveal on last Sunday, when we were watching that, and they showed the Pit-Boy. Yeah, there's a little bit inside of me. It's like, man, I wish I could have that, so I can sit there like a complete loser in my living room while I'm looking at my Pit-Boy. But at the same time, I don't know if it's really worth it yet.
I thought it looked really crappy, if I'm honest, because I mean, at first I thought it was a standalone device, and now I discover it's just a case to put your phone in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get that app without the Pip-Boy, so you can still do all the inventory stuff off screen, but it's yeah. I already foresee pairing issues between your mobile device and the console plaguing it as well.
Yeah.
At any rate, so
back to Batman, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I got an email from Amazon, and bear in mind the game came out Tuesday of this week. Yeah, Tuesday just gone. I got an email from Amazon the Thursday before saying, we can't ship this because the supplier has told us there's a packaging quality issue. Not even, the quality of the contents, just the packaging. And I'm like, you kidding me? The packaging is the thing I open and throw away. I don't care if it's got a ding, So basically, Warner Brothers haven't cancelled that edition. They've delayed it until July 14th. And no one seems to be reporting on this, which is really frustrating me, because it just means they're getting away with it then. So basically, Warner Brothers want to reprint the packaging, give them to Amazon, and then Amazon send it out a month after the game's release. By way of apology, they knocked a tenner off the game, and they gave me a digital download code so I could download it off of PSN, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason I don't buy digital copies is because I live in a cottage in a rural village. My internet, we've got no fibre. I get 4.5 Mbps on a good day. Does anyone... Richie and Terry, you can't chime in on this because you know how long it took. Vinny, how long do you think it took to download Arkham Knight?
At 4.5 meg.
On a good day.
300 megabytes an hour, so that's about...
It's a 60 gig game.
How 60 gig?
Yeah.
Jesus. It must have taken you at least 2 days.
I started the download at midnight on Tuesday, when I got the code through email. It finished downloading at about 1 p.m. on Thursday. I got a text while I was at work saying it was done. But what was really frustrating is it did it in two parts. So there was a 16 gig download, right? And this gives you, the base game. And as soon as the 16 gig download finished, I was like, yay, I can play it. And I noticed another download had started called Batman Arkham Knight Application Data. So I very quickly found out that 16 gig was more or less a glorified demo. So I'm, running around, side quests for, Riddler and stuff are opening up. I go to do them, and it's game data installing, please wait. And there's a timer of, 120 hours on screen for the please wait.
So has this actually finished yet?
Yeah, it finished on Thursday, downloading.
I thought you meant the first part.
No, the whole thing finished on Thursday. But so I was like, fine, I can at least play the story, I just can't go do the other stuff, the AR missions and everything else I couldn't do. I got to a point in the story, which I'm not going to mention which point it is to avoid spoilers. It's a really good point. And then the screen just went black after the cutscene and went, game data installing, please wait. I literally had a glorified demo for a day and a half, and I think that was more painful. I would have preferred to have just waited for the whole thing instead of thinking I had the game and then finding out no.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, I made the digital switch a couple of years ago, and everything I own is in digital now. Obviously, I haven't bought a box game in 2.5 years now. Okay. So, yeah, but I'm fortunate enough to have a decent internet connection, so yeah, I feel your pain, man. That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I got my Arkham Knight digital because I would have liked to have a box copy of it, and I would have actually got the limited edition, but they don't do it for PC. I don't have an Xbox One or a PS4, so I was
the Batman Statue Edition was Xbox One and PS4 only. You couldn't get it for PC.
Yeah, and I figured I could either get it on disc for 26 quid, or I could get the premium edition with the season pass digitally for 25 quid. So I figured I'd go that route.
Well, considering if I want the season pass on console from PSN, I have to pay $32.99 for it, which is extortion for a season pass.
Check out CD Key websites. They're doing some good stuff for consoles these days. Like, you can get The Last of Us Remastered download for like 9 quid. I know you're not a fan of downloads, but I mean, that might be helpful to someone else.
True.
Yeah, but so with my Arkham Knight experience, because I mean, it's kind of renowned that it's got loads and loads of problems on PC, loads and loads of people have problems with it.
Well, supposedly the PC... Sorry, I was just going to say, supposedly the PC port was done by a team of 12 people, and that team of 12 only had console experience, didn't have any PC experience.
That would be why it was 30 frames per second.
Yeah, it was locked at 30 frames per second. You could manually unlock it, but stability went out the window the second you unlock it.
Well, that's the thing. I did that myself, and it's fine. I was running frats. I mean, it was sort of jumping back and forth between like 72 FPS and 36, like around the area. Depends on whether you're in a big open environment or inside a building, you know, that kind of thing. The sort of thing you expect. But I mean, my system, it's kind of sort of, I guess I'd call it mid-range in terms of gaming PCs, and so I'm running it at like mid-settings, so slightly higher than console. But
we both have
the same and it's running perfectly fine. But it's really weird that that like loads of people are having this problem. I think I'm like the only person I've like heard of having an okay experience with it on PC, but I'm just waiting for it to start changing, basically.
The thing is, when I first contacted you about this, being like, oh man, you were going buying it on PC now, you were like, why? And I actually had to point you towards all these articles and forum posts of people being in an absolute outcry going, this is terrible!
Yeah, well, I mean, at first they said it was with AMD cards, and I've got an NVIDIA card, so I was thinking, oh, okay, it's that. And then NVIDIA users were complaining, and I was thinking, oh, maybe they haven't updated their drivers. And now it's got to the point where they've removed it off Steam. I was like, okay, there's something else going on. That's really weird. Maybe I've got, like, the one graphics card that's fine with it.
You're the 1% that can actually play it.
Yeah.
A similar thing actually happened with, I remember I was watching the review for Assassin's Creed Unity. I'm not being biased, by the way. This is before I was at the company. I was watching a review on game trailers for Assassin's Creed Unity, and the reviewer, Brandon Jones, he played all the way through Unity a week before the game was released, and he didn't run into a single glitch. Like, literally, not a single one. He was like, yeah, the game was great, it played fine. And then, like, the next week, he was just beyond confused because he saw these articles flood in, just like, what? That didn't happen to me. What are you talking about?
I think what happens
you're like 1%.
Is that... I think that what you probably get is you get the majority of people having an experience that's okay, that's fine, and then the minority having an experience that's glitchy, buggy, etc. Because when you look at, like, the Assassin's Creed Unity glitches, I don't know about you, but it's always the same damn screenshot and always the same damn video that the news article uses. So I think, like, a small selection have had a bad experience, but then that's gone out to everybody, and the press have blown it out of proportion to make it sound like everybody is affected.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. Oh, carry on. I was just going to say, I bet a lot of these people as well either have underpowered PCs that they are overestimating the ability of, and they're probably not updating their drivers and that kind of thing.
I played Arkham City okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was Arkham City. That was like a PS3, Xbox 360 era game. This is current gen now, you know.
Exactly. Oh god, yeah, no, that's another thing as well. Like, I noticed there was a major change in system requirements as soon as the games started being PS4, Xbox One games. Like, I was running games on full settings, like Far Cry 3 and things like that, and then you go over to like Far Cry 4, and I'm having to turn things down on this PC I just built last year. I was just like, oh, well, that sucks. But it still looks good.
Didn't Rocksteady get in trouble because the game pages on various websites for, like, Steam, Green Man Gaming, etc., apparently the minimum requirements were changed a couple of days before release, and they went up massively. So people had looked at the minimum requirements, pre-ordered on that basis, and then just before release, they changed the minimum requirements and put them through the roof.
As a rule, to be honest, what I'd advise to anyone buying a PC game is minimum requirements are not a good thing to go by. Your best bet is to go with the recommended requirements. seriously. Your minimum requirement is like
here's the thing,
running
Terry,
at 800 by 600 like low settings sometimes.
You can run The Witcher 3 if it looks like a PS2 game.
Exactly.
But here's the weird thing, right? If the minimum requirements go up, then surely the recommended requirements go up as well. So even if you've based it on the recommended requirements, when the minimum requirements go up, the recommended ones do too. So you're still screwed.
Well, I'll give you another for instance. With the RAM, it recommends 8 gig, but I've looked at Task Manager and it's used more than 8 gig at one point.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 16 gig
6...
machine. It would probably run okay on, but
I think that's down to PR though. I mean, when you're getting ready to ship a game, normally all the PR and stuff, all the system requirements for a PC game will probably go out way before the game is finished. And they'll probably base that off pretty much the last build, so they're probably basing them specs off the alpha build. And then when the game went gold, they probably looked at the game again, looked at its memory and like processors and stuff, and thought, oh crap, this is actually pumping out a bit more, we need to go and change that. It's probably what's happened.
This feeds into, and this is something you can probably comment on a lot more now, Vinny, people complaining about E3 videos and E3 demos looking very different to the finished game, and I think, and features going missing and that kind of thing. Now, speaking for myself, like, during development of games, you can reach points where you say, okay, this really awesome thing is actually having unexpected consequences here. We've tried fiddling with it. The only thing we can do now is get rid of it or change it entirely. So things do change and disappear, or you put in this really high polygon lovely model and it runs okay in tests, but as soon as you have it in the live environment with the actual number of NPCs roaming around, actually your estimates for whether it would run okay or not were a little bit out, and you've got to dial it back a bit. Those sort of chop and change things will happen in any creative industry.
Yeah, especially games. I mean, I get very, very defensive about the games industry when it comes to this sort of stuff. I mean, last year when the whole Watch Dogs things happened, when Watch Dogs was originally shown, and it looked very different to how the final product was done.
You see, I still think very is a stretch. It looks noticeably different, but not. Yeah.
It's quite different. Like, I'll admit that it does, and it looks very different. There's a number of reasons for this. The main reason is when you're making a game, it's impossible to sort of grasp how the game is going to look when it's finished. So what you try and do is you try and make the game look as awesome as possible as soon as possible.
Yeah, so you go with the best case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're like, okay, this is the point where we want the game. This is what we want the game to look at like. And then you start putting features into that game, like, but what if Pierce can, like, I don't know, fly out of a window and hack something as he's falling to the ground, it explodes or whatever. Once you start adding them features, like, that puts a heavy weight on the game. And these features are done way after the game has been announced. Now, that part I'll defend the game about. I mean, games change. Like, they're going to look worse. Like, the Division is starting to look a bit different now as well.
I think the other thing you've got to remember is that development rigs versus consumer rigs, you're going to be developing it on a PC that's so much more powerful than anything the end user's going to play it on.
There's that as well. I mean, with the whole like Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed Unity thing, especially, I mean, you got to remember them boys started on that game before the PS4 and the Xbox One was even announced. Like, they were trying to make a game for a system that didn't exist, and then they got sort of castrated because, your game doesn't look the same from when before the console was announced. It's like, well, how can we predict that? It's kind of ridiculous.
The thing as well, though, like, this is why the transition's been slow, and this is why there aren't many must-have games for these systems yet, because nobody wants to be the first ones to dip their toes in the water, and no one wants to get the kind of flack that Watch Dogs got.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem of this, and the best way to solve it, is for the games industry to do exactly what Bethesda does. Bethesda are very good at how they announce their games. There's a lot of companies out there that announce their games way, way, way too early.
Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 13 versus / Final Fantasy 15. I'm
15
on Square,
should have been shown. Last Guardian shouldn't have been shown. Kingdom Hearts 3 shouldn't have been shown. Them games aren't coming out for many, many years. And we're just going to be sat. And by the time they do come out, we're going to feel jaded about it. You know, we're going to be like, oh my god, like really, this is still in development. But then you look at Bethesda, they've just shown a game last week. Oh, this game's out in November. Look how awesome it looks. That is how you do it.
You've got like a 3-4 month wait, and you know the announcement trailer is going to be pretty much spot on to the finished thing.
Yeah,
you know,
like
they set your expectations very well.
Yeah, I mean that is the best way to do it. So it's both ways. It's about people not knowing how games work, rightfully so, but it's also about the companies not announcing their games at the right time. So it's a bit. But either way, everyone's got the wrong idea of it.
Sorry, Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question about the Watch Dogs thing. I mean, like, because there was that whole thing where people were quote unquote unlocking the E3 version, like going through some configuration files and doing something like that. I mean,
then those people came across horrific errors when they actually tried to play the game through.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Oh, right.
It's basically when you're building a game, you put features into a game, and if the feature is slowing down, you don't necessarily nine times out of 10 you don't take it out of the game. You leave it there and you just turn it off. While you carry on developing.
The thing is, you've got to remember that there are other things in the game's code that may have dependencies on that feature. So if you cut a feature, which is no longer used, fine, but there could be 1,000 other places where that feature is referenced in the code. So if that feature no longer exists, when the code tries to run it, it can't find it, and that's when your game starts crashing.
Yeah, there's that. You just there is that, but they also... Like 9 times out of 10, if they do turn it off in the game, the reason why they leave it in there is because they hope that they'll be able to turn it on again. So in the example of Watch Dogs, like in that opening scene in the nightclub, like in the original E3 trailer, he was like walking through and it's all misty and foggy and the lights are awesome. But then in the final build, they took the fog out. I'm pretty sure like they turned that fog off, like, right, we're going to try and get that fog back on at some point so it doesn't slow the game down, and we're going to
but in the end,
around. But in the end, they didn't, so they just left it off.
You have to go gold at some point. You've only got so much of a development budget, you know.
Yeah.
Making games is hard. I don't think people really truly understand how difficult it is. So it's really hard, and like developers do go and look at this stuff. Like when Kotaku cuts them down, they go and see it, and it really hurts. Like when you see like one of your games getting cut down, it's tough, and if you have to try and explain every single instance which they cut down, it's almost impossible. Damage control is awful when it comes to video games. But
I would have liked to have been like Rocksteady with this whole PC thing. Yeah, that must suck for them.
Here's the thing, though. I think they've done the right thing on 3 separate occasions where there's been a quality issue, and they've said, okay, we're not giving it to them in this state. The Batmobile edition, the Batman Statue edition, and now the PC version as a whole. And yeah, it sucks that we've got to wait, but I would rather they focus on doing this rather than doing what most companies would do, which is, well, you can play it in its current buggy state and we'll get round to a patch when it suits us.
Yeah, I think 9 times out of 10, the issues that do come around is nothing to do with the developer itself. It's down to the publisher, and that's another thing. There's a very big difference between a publisher and a developer, and the publishers are normally the ones that are calling the shots. So if a game gets pushed out early, it's not because the developer wants it out early, it's because the publisher wants it out.
Yeah, so, I was going to say that makes a good
some
point.
Shareholders want it out.
I was going to say that's why things get announced early as well, isn't it? Because there's pressure from bigger companies, people who basically are making the money off it, are the ones who usually push for it to be announced.
They want to get that
the money in.
It's
back the money, is it? It's get the money in.
And this is why I hate pre-orders, to be honest, because it fuels that industry of, publishers trying to announce early so they can get more pre-orders in, so they can get more money earlier, so they can rush development, and then the game comes out buggy. It's all a part of the same vicious cycle, and this is why I never pre-order games.
And then it gets even worse with early access as well.
Exactly. That's another thing as well. It's a different thing.
That's a whole demon in itself.
I agree with you 1,001%. However, it's a really nice statue.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you go back maybe even 5 years ago, remember when, well, even further than 5 years, remember when the Halo 3 Collector's Edition came out and it came with the Master Chief's, head?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that back then was, the perfect time for pre-orders. Because Fallout 3 came out, and that came out with the lunchbox.
Oh, I've still got the lunchbox.
They were really cool things, and they weren't exclusive to certain stores or anything like that. It's just
the exclusivity thing. That's That's a ball like that is.
Yeah, like Amazon
Pre-order
have got their own
bonus.
things, and Best Buy have got their own things, and it's just everyone's got like this weird, dysfunctional version of the same game, and it's.
But I think where it gets ridiculous is where Watch Dogs has had this, Arkham Knight has had this.
Yeah.
When people have to put together a graph in Excel with little crosses as to what edition comes with what, so they can work out what edition they should buy to get the stuff they're interested in.
Yeah, I remember though. One of the first instances, as we're on the subject, was actually the first Batman game. I remember on the PS3 version you could play as the Joker, but on the Xbox 360 version you couldn't.
And there was also the limited edition that came with the Batarang.
Exactly.
Well.
I think that was one of the first games that really broke out and did it. And I remember how much uproar there was about it as well. But now that's an everyday occurrence and no one talks about it. And I think it's something that people need to be vocal about because it's a really bad part of the business.
It's a horrible practice. But speaking on Arkham Asylum, people who've been listening famously know that Richie has not played a single Arkham game and that me and Terry consider that to be a crime.
I played the first one.
At least even Vinny's played the first one. So during the Steam sale, £3.25 I think Asylum went down to, Game of the Year edition. Gifted it to Richie on Steam, got a Facebook message back about 10 minutes later just calling me a bastard, or worse to that effect. So he's got no excuse now, and he still hasn't played it.
In my defense...
I've seen him on Steam, he's got a long list.
Yeah, and it's...
In my defense, I have a lot of games on Steam. It's easy for me to miss it. No, I will play it. I have installed it. You've
got a lot of games on Steam, and all you ever play is Binding of Isaac.
Oh, that is
how many games do you have on Steam?
Oh, Christ, I don't know. You carry on talking, I'll have a look.
That is not our question of the week, but I am now interested. Last I checked was... Well, I've got Steam open now, actually. 135 games on Steam.
348.
So, 348 for Terry. Vinny, what was yours?
So you won't date me. I've done 127, I've got.
127.
160.
106.
So I've got the least.
160.
I've got no excuse now.
Yeah, you've got the least. Get on it. Next week, full review of Arkham Asylum from Richie.
We just buy ours on Steam sales and just leave them.
Yeah, this is true.
And humble bundles and all that stuff.
What's poison for me is, there's 135 games, but the amount of those that are... Joanna loves point and clicks. So, the Back to the Future point and click is 5 episodes, so it appears on my Steam list as 5 games. So that's admittedly inflating my number, because I've got, Back to the Future, Wallace and Gromit, Sam and Max,
Yeah, for me it's humble indie bundles that I buy for just one game, but it'll be a code for, multiple games.
I've got a really bad habit of just buying, if it's multiple games that I want from one studio, I'll go and look if they've got a bundle. They got a bundle with 15 extra games, which I'm never, ever going to play.
Yeah,
screw it.
But you convince yourself it's value for money and you buy it.
Yeah, I will play World of Zoo one day. No, you won't.
I mentioned that is not the question of the week, how many Steam games you've got. So I may as well give you the actual question of the week. The earliest video game crush you can remember having. So for me, I think it was probably Claire Redfield from Resident Evil 2.
Oh, wow. Renault from Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, Renault, that's very, very, very good choice. She's... Okay, her and Claire are now having a mud fight in my mind, and the winner is my answer.
Oh. Didn't need to know that.
Okay, this is taking a strange turn.
This is now creepy.
Yeah. Although saying that, I was talking about porn on the first one I was on, so,
True.
A porn
Richie,
game.
Vinny?
I'm probably going to go with a pretty stereotypical one and say Lara Croft.
Really?
Yeah.
Triangular titties are your thing.
Well, yeah, I mean... we've talked about it in a previous podcast. The amount of time I spent trying to unlock her naked cheat was way too much.
Yeah, I think every young boy tried to run to the prison cell in Metal Gear Solid to try and get Meryl naked at some point.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, good one.
You can get her down to her undies, but you can't get her naked.
That's as far as I got.
I wonder how many people got an Explorer cheat cartridge just for the naked Lara thing.
And everybody goes silent.
That is solved.
No one wants to admit to it. Yeah.
Wasn't that code like 36 lines or something? It's one of the longest exploder codes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I can't say I ever did it. I'm not gonna lie.
Typing that in manually.
That's what Google's for.
Typing that in manually on the interface of the exploder with a
That's
goddamn
the kind of
D-pad.
fan art I can get behind.
Yeah. Just again to reiterate, when we're talking about the exploder, we are talking about a cheat cartridge.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek.
Confused.
For Americans, it would have probably been the Action Replay or the Game Shark, I'm guessing.
I don't know what mine would be, though. Yeah, First Crush. Wow.
Yeah. We've had Claire Redfield, Renoa Hartley, Lara Croft.
Okay, I've got one which Sam can relate with. Princess Garnet Till, 17.
Oh! You know I like petite brunettes and redheads. You know I like petite brunettes and redheads.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 9 Princess. I think that was probably the first one. I was about 10 years old when 9 came out. I'm not sure.
Oh, you'd have been older than that, dude. I know we would have been in high school when 9 came out.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
But we...
I remember, like, I was around the age of 16, maybe, because I was like, hey, she's the same age as me. She's cute.
She's got a very cute face. I think that's
what
does it.
She also had a very cute butt.
Hey!
I used to... You remember when you come out of the ice cave and she, like, looks at Zidane's dagger and she's like, I'm casting aside my royal title. I'm not going to be called Gannett anymore. I remember us two playing it in uni, and it comes up with the name entry with Dagger. We deleted out Dagger, and we typed in Gannett again. So she's like, I am no longer Princess Gannett. From now on, I shall be known as Gannett.
We used to do the same thing with Steiner as well. Steiner would be like, my name is not Rusty, my name is Rusty. It's like, no, your name is Rusty. I renamed it Rusty. Trolling
Will we be getting pictures to go with these things we've mentioned in the video?
I'm very lazy at editing, so no.
I'm curious now.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of character
Google search it, dude.
I will.
Speaking of character names, the fun I had naming my character in Pokemon Red, fuck me. Fuck me, you just beat the Elite Four.
That one works best in Pokemon Emerald, because Pokemon Emerald, right at the start, you go across to May's house, and her line is, I was hoping that you'd be nice, then the player's name, and that we could be friends. So if you put fuck me, it says, I was hoping that you'd be nice, fuck me, and we could be friends.
I think, like, my whole experience of playing Halo 1 on PC and multiplayer was awesome like that, because I'd have my character name as Your Mother for everything. So
you sniped your mother.
Yeah, exactly. You got killed by your mother. You assassinated your mother, and it's like
it's like the guy who set his gamer tag to Xbox turn off, and then went into these matches. It's like,
how you legend. Man, I would have been there for days and wouldn't thought of that. That's brilliant.
It's like Xbox main menu, and then you could just hear them through their mic going, "Oh no, no." No.
Yeah, there's YouTube videos of that, isn't there?
Yeah, and during the Xbox One press conference, when they were announcing it and demonstrating the Kinect 2, people were watching the stream on their Xbox 360, and when the guy was saying Xbox turned off, it was going off for them as well.
Well, there was that advert, wasn't there, with, I forget his name, he played Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad. And they were advertising that feature, and he'd come on the TV, sit down and go, Xbox on. And if that person happened to have an Xbox in their room...
Yeah, I do remember the articles on that. It was pretty funny.
Well, when I was trying to decide PS4 or Xbox One, that very feature was one of the reasons I went with PS4, because well, Joe and the kids, I didn't trust them not to just sign around and go, Xbox off, when I was halfway through a boss fight.
Yeah, I remember the first videos that came out with the original Kinect when people were playing Skyrim, and they put all the like all the voice commands into the
the shouts.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
and there was some guy that just walked into the room and went, quick save. It's like attack NPC, and so like your character just started like pummeling like people and stuff. And the guy, because he started attacking normal people, and said quick save straight after, like when he died and respawned, he was already attacking someone. I was like, oh man, that's so cool.
God.
So cruel, but so funny.
Yeah, totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But no, I think this has been wow. We are on an hour and a half. We are running a little longer than usual today. So I'm gonna call it there, guys. But this has been, I think, one of the best casts we've done so far. Richie's new microphone, which we should have mentioned, people. Richie bought a new mic.
Yeah, got a blue snowball. Yay! It's gorgeous and massive, and I love it.
It's gorgeous and massive, and he loves it. Right, I've got that as a sound clip. I can take that out of context anytime I want.
It's not the only thing either.
I've got so many sound clips of you now. I'm just going to put something together one day that's like...
I'm sure there's an innuendo about Exploder we can use.
Oh, yeah.
I think the innuendo in this episode was definitely when Sam said, when Garnet came out of the cave and looked at Zidane's dagger... He totally missed it, and I was like, really? Like, how'd you miss that? That was brilliant.
She unsheathed him.
Yes, that's what she said.
Yeah. So somehow we ended up talking about porn again, for which I blame Terry. And actually, for a guy who's hungover and sleep deprived, he's done very, very well this week. And of course, we've had our special guest, Vinny Hill, who has simply been amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, anytime you want to come back, you let me know, and we will do a Saturday recording instead of a weekday recording to accommodate. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'll be up for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you to absolutely everybody for listening. So thanks, Lupacillo, for listening. And we will see you all again in a week or two.